Cary Carbonaro, thank you for joining the podcast this afternoon and having a little bit of time to chat with you and get to know you a little bit more.
Thank you for having me, Scott. Happy to be here.
It is a true pleasure. I was introduced to you through a mutual friend and employee of ours, Rick Bacora, who's such a gentleman, but tenured in the career and helping us to introduce ourselves to all types of wonderful, like-minded advisors like yourself. So, sincerely, thank you for taking the time, not only to communicate with me today and meet with us on the podcast, but thank you also for taking the time earlier this week at the Invest in Women conference. I think we would be negligent if we didn't talk about that at least for a hot minute.
Sure, let's talk about it. So I was just saying, Invest in Women has been around for 11 years. It's the longest running women's conference put on by Financial Advisor magazine.
What's your take on where it seems to be a little bit, and maybe it's more than a little bit, this trend of, we got to do things for women only. And the reason why I say it that way is I challenge a little bit the paradigm and the thought of like, it's something that we feel like we need to do. And so we're going to go ahead and do it versus something like really believing in women as a force, not only as individuals in their normal day in life, but as financial professionals that, in my opinion, are the future of financial planning. And I can unpack why that is for me on a very personal level from my past, but I do feel, or I wonder a little bit, is this, are you doing this because it's kind of a trend and you're supposed to, or are you like really an advocate of all of this?
Well, it really depends on who the sponsor is. I'll tell you that because, obviously I'm speaking at every single one of these women only conferences. And interestingly enough, I know we're going to talk about my book, but last year we actually launched my book at the Invest in Women conference 2 weeks before the public got it. So I wanted to make sure I got it in the hands of all the women financial advisors that go to that conference whatever, 2 or 3 weeks before everybody else got it. So that was, I had to move heaven and earth to have that happen, but they are such a big sponsor of women and, they've been doing it the longest. They've been, before it was even vogue to say, let's have a women's only conference, they were doing a women's only conference. So
amen to that.
I know.
Amen to that. And more of that. And, before we get into the book, because I will transition to that after, what would you say to those advisors, male or female, who are successful in their own right? They've got a tenure, they've got sustainability in their career, and they are successful. And they say, or they snicker at anybody who would take the time out of their life, their career, to go and invest in a conference with a bunch of other people, because there are those people. What do you say in that response, in that regard?
Well, I think it depends on the person, the type of person you are, right? Because I know that some advisors will never go to a conference no matter what, because they're either antisocial or they don't see the benefit or whatever, but they're really just cutting off their nose to spite their face, or it's not for them. But for the people who want connection and want to learn from each other and, because the connections are the most important part of the conference. Yes, you get education. Yes, you get all these incredible things. Yes, you meet sponsors. Yes, all of that stuff. But it's really the connections and the one-on-ones with the people that you meet that will elevate your experience.
And I think there's two classes of conferences. There's those that are, in the ecosystem. So, for example, a broker-dealer conference or an RIA conference that's of size. Right. There's value in that, but you're still in the environment. You're still in the ecosystem. And then there's those true independent industry-related, like the Advisor Magazine, Invest in Women, or you could go on and on, Nitrogen, whatever the case may be. And it is a networking opportunity to meet with other professionals that are outside the ecosystem. And there's value,
Exactly.
so much value to be had in that.
Well, I always find in those situations, I mean, if you're just staying within your little bubble, then you don't even know what you don't know. And so you get outside of that bubble and the whole world opens up.
It's exactly right. Okay, let's get to your book. A very interesting, informative book. I will say, let's start with this. The first few chapters, sharing your story, your background, which is very interesting. It's very unique to you. Although I would contend, probably not that abnormal for a female advisor determining some level of success and the challenges that some people face in their career.
Right. Well, it's interesting because it is very personal and very unique to me. However, it is very universal. And I get that a lot from a lot of women who read it and say, oh my gosh, I have to talk to you. I went through the same experience and I had this and I was married to Mr. Wrong. And I, also work for a company that, discriminated against me. And so I get a lot of women reaching out to me saying, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for, being the mouthpiece for the industry. And thank you for, calling, putting names to the issues that have happened to women. And believe me, it's not
Yeah, I mean,
easy.
no, I mean, the injustice of women in the workplace versus their male counterparts is astonishing to me at this day and age. Beyond that, and I've said this many times, and any of our staff and any of our advisors have heard me repeat this many times, the female is a much better suited professional to be an advisor than the male counterparts. Why? Because if nothing else, you get relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You're better at sharing information. You're significantly better at spinning multiple plates.
Right.
And most commonly, male counterparts are just not. We don't share information. We don't get emotional. It's about facts and figures. It's not
Right.
about relationships and understanding the client as much as a female advisor.
Well, what I say for that exact thing is that men are transactional and women are relational. And that pretty much sums up that exactly what you just said.
So earlier, I'm interested in earlier on in your career when you were experiencing these levels of success. I think I remember number 4, female advisor. Anyways,
Yes, that was 2019.
I mean, to subject the fact that it's like, hey, we got it. You're successful up to this point, but we've got it all handled. Just step aside and you'll be just fine.
Right.
And
Except
you're along for the ride.
It was the opposite of that. It was the opposite
tell me more
of that.
about that.
So,
and then how did you retool from that point? What happened
that was
subsequently?
Hard. It was really hard. It was really hard. I actually just spoke about this at the Invest in Women conference. So first, I'll give you the context. And so in 2019, I was ranked in Investopedia's, I was number 4 in the country, and I was the number 1 woman ranked in the country by influence and I don't know, however their rankings were ranked. And it was a big deal. They usually just rank the top 100 and they only listed really the top 10. And it was a great tool to get clients. Pretty much people could build a practice on that if they wanted to. Like, it's a really big honor. And when I got it, I was at Goldman Sachs because my company had just been sold to them. And not only was I not allowed to use it or tell anybody or share or do anything with it, they actually put me through anti-bribery training because they didn't believe that I actually won it.
Oh my gosh.
I know. It's horrible.
So I'm understating the word injustice then. Is what we're really talking about here.
And that wasn't necessarily because I was a female. It was more just because they were Goldman Sachs and they really only believe that people are with their firm because of the firm name, not because of the individual. And in our industry, people are with you because of you as a person and you as an individual and you as a brand, not because of the name on the door. So it's a complete juxtaposition of what is actually happening and what is real. They just hired their first marketing person ever in like 2021 or something like that.
Mm.
So there, 100 and something years of no marketing people and no sign on the door because, people just know who they are and find them because of them. And, they don't want somebody to be beholden to you. They want somebody to be beholden to the firm. So it was a terrible fit from going from an independent RIA that was super innovative to a very restrictive, brand down policy.
Right.
It just didn't
Right.
match. And so they didn't understand what to do with us. They didn't understand how we work. They didn't understand consumers. They didn't understand really any of it. And they ran it into the ground and then sold it for pennies on the dollar. So it's a really terrible story, but unfortunately I got caught up in it.
And so how did you break free from that and unbundle all that and retool? What happened?
Oh, it's a long story. I'll try to not take up the whole rest of the podcast time with it, but I tried to get out of my contract. And because I was a partner slash owner, I had stock, which made it very, very difficult because of the covenants that were written into the language when we transferred over. So I could not get out of my contract, but let's just put it that way. And so I tried to buy my way out of my contract. I worked with a very expensive attorney, and she said the only way out is for you to write them a check to leave. And I finally came to terms with I was going to write them a check to leave. I offered to write them a check to leave. They said yes, and then they reneged on me. And I was not allowed to buy my business back. And that time I was the only person they said no to, and I was the only woman. All the other people that bought their businesses back were male, and they all got to leave and buy their businesses back. So it put me in a terrible situation where I then had to quit and run out my non-compete in order to be able to leave and break ties to this company. And so that's what I did. I quit, ran out my non-compete. Originally, the non-compete was 2 years. They shortened it to 6 months because they lowered everybody's pay. And I said, I can live with 6 months. I couldn't live with 2 years, but I could live with 6 months. So I didn't work for 6 months. I lost all of my client data and performance information and everything for over a decade. I mean, probably 15 years worth of work. I lost everything and there was nothing I could do. Even today, my clients are like, where's all our old data? It's gone. It's back at Goldman or thrown out because Goldman sold. So it's somewhere in the ether. I don't know where it is, but I don't have it, and I wasn't allowed to take it. And if I did, that would have been, taking. I could have been sued for that. So I wasn't allowed to take anything, not even my client names and phone numbers. So I wasn't allowed to do it. But anyway, so I wound up quitting, running out my non-compete. And I wound up in the wrong firm on the other side because at that moment in time, nobody wanted me because everybody thought I was getting sued by Goldman. So not only did I have to pivot from United to Goldman, from Goldman to another firm, but then after that firm, I had to pivot again to another firm. So I had to move my clients 4 times in 5 years, which is just horrible. It's more horrible for me than it is for them. I promise you, because I had to redo everything from scratch every time. Although the only thing I did do was we kept our Fidelity account numbers, where Fidelity is my custodian, Fidelity Institutional. So that has been the consistent. So the consistent for my clients has been me as their advisor, the same financial planning software, the same Fidelity account numbers, and then just the name on the door has changed. And the email has changed, which they hate.
Yeah. I think that's a good dovetail to pause for a moment until we look at a little bit more about your practice in the future for you is through that. And in today's day and age, there is so much going on with M&A and acquisition and firms purchasing firms.
Yeah.
And, I imagine you get questioned or you speak about the best practices, things to watch out for, lessons learned about, as you develop success in your practice, what decisions you make and the impact those decisions could have.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the one thing I always ask, especially women advisors, is do you own your clients? That's like the first thing that comes out of my mouth. And, 99% of the time they say no or I don't know. And if it's I don't know, the answer is no. So
That high?
most, what?
It's that high?
It's high. It's really high. Yeah, because they're usually
Wow.
young. They're usually young. So, I mean, it's okay. I mean,
Mhm.
it's not like I'm talking to a seasoned advisor asking that question.
Right,
I usually
right,
ask
right, right.
the young people because they don't even know what that means. So I explain, how important it is to own your clients and, what self-sourced is versus, with self-sourced versus, and that's really organic growth versus,
Mhm.
getting clients and then the different ways to get clients. And I was just speaking about this at the conference last week at Invest in Women. And I said, there's a lot of different ways to get clients, but, and a lot of them are very expensive. So, a lot of people do, especially in Florida where I am, they do the seminars and the free lunch and free dinner and they have to pay for everything. And I'm like, I'm not doing that because people pay to speak to me. So I'm not paying you to come listen to me. You're paying me. So I'm the
Mhm.
complete opposite of that. And that's incredibly expensive, and then if you're going to get in the Fidelity or Schwab referral programs, also very expensive. And, because you're going to be paying ongoing a fee to a referral fee for the rest of your life of that client, and then there's also, a lot of different other ways to do it, but usually they're expensive. So I
Mhm.
like, or buying somebody else's business, incredibly expensive. We know what the multiples are today. You're paying through the nose if you're going to buy a new practice today. But that's, you need clients. So how are you going to get clients? And that's the hardest part of being a financial advisor is how do you get your own clients? And are they self-sourced or are they, where are you getting them from? And then I said, we're talking about AUM and, everybody measures us on AUM. And I said, first of all, we should not be measured on AUM. We should be measured on revenue or profitability, even better. So it's what your
Mhm.
revenue is and then what your profitability is, because you could have incredible revenue and you could be spending all the revenue on employees and staff and offices and
And
et cetera.
advertising,
Right. Exactly.
seminars, video
Exactly.
commercials, all these things. Well,
Exactly.
what's better? Yeah.
Right. So
Mhm.
I'm an incredibly profitable practice. I've always been. And just because I just didn't think it was good business sense to do those other ways because I didn't have to. So I self-sourced all my clients through PR, TV, speaking, writing. So pretty much I have almost a zero cost to get my clients.
Mhm.
So I think I've been incredibly lucky. And I never cold called. I never did a lot of the things that people do when they get started.
What are some of the strengths for a household that lend themselves to acclimating or being attracted to you and your firm? What are the differentiators? What value do you bring? How do you set that up?
So it's interesting because I am known as a women in wealth expert. So I am known as understanding women, understanding the life stages that they go through. I specialize a lot in, very high breadwinning women. A lot of my clients make over $1 million a year, and that comes with different challenges than somebody who either inherited money or got their money from a divorce. So, and also knowing the different life cycles and the different risk appetites of the women makes a big difference of how you're going to work with them and how you're going to approach them and just knowing what's important to them. And that's pretty much the most important thing that you're going to do with your
Was that
clients.
innate in the genesis of your career?
It's always
Meaning
been
the
there.
emphasis. It has. The women
Yeah,
in wealth and financial planning has always been from day
always.
one. That was your core
From day
market.
one, from day one. Yeah, it's interesting because I transitioned from running my last job before I started my practice was I was head of digital wealth or, social media marketing at Lord Abbett Mutual Funds. And so I was a marketer first. So I'm very good at marketing. And so I just
Mhm.
translated my marketing skills to my practice. And then I just was, and then I'm also a CFP. So then I'm like, let's do CFP marketing to women. and let's talk about all the, fantastic things that women can do with money, and why it's important to them, and what is most, what matters to them. And let's demystify all the language around wealth management, which is incredibly male. So it's just kind of how I started.
Yeah, and it's just another reminder for advisors to achieve, I believe, their ultimate level of success defined by their rules.
Right.
That's their rules to define. But the more focused you can be on who your ideal client profile is, the better runway you have to deliver, your
Well, it's
value
interesting.
proposition and who you are.
Somebody said to me recently, like, did you know that you were always going to just work with women? And honestly, the truth is, I did not know that I was always going to work with women. However, that's who I wanted to work with. So, and I do have some couples. I do have couples. I mean, it's not that I don't have, I have male, I have some men in my
Right.
book that are married to women, and they, some of them hired me for their wife, and they actually told me that they hired me for their wife. And then others have just said, they like the way I talk to their wife, and that I bring her into the conversation, and that maybe she wasn't interested in the money discussion before, and now she's interested in the conversations that we have.
What do you care about most in your life? What matters most to you?
What matters most to me is that women are treated equally, with respect, and are never second class citizens. So to me, that means that women are always given a seat at the table. Women are always part of the conversation. Women are never an afterthought. That women can make incredible decisions with their money, and that we are open to changing the playbook that we're currently using, which was created by men for men, to make it female friendly.
I mean,
It's a lot. I know that's a
staggering
lot, but it's all related.
No, it is. And there, to that end, there's a few chapters that I wanted to double click on that just really stood out to me within the book. But it is, sidebar, it continues to be a staggering statistic and fact of how the industry is still so male dominated.
So male dominated.
With the
Yes.
fact that women stand to inherit the majority of
Yeah.
wealth over the next generation.
Right. Well, so the crazy thing is, this book was based on the McKinsey study that said women will control 2/3 of the nation's wealth by 2030. And it came out in 2015. So it came out over a decade ago. So we have known this information now for 11 years.
Yeah.
And nothing is changing really. I mean, there's a few firms that are, having a women wealth section on their website, and we're trying like crazy to get more women into the profession. And it's interesting because there are a lot more women coming in and taking the test. Like there's more CFP women there's more, like the stats of women versus men taking the test. Women is higher than you would think. I mean, considering we're only 23.9%, but what they're saying is it's a denominator issue, that excuse my language, but the old white men are not leaving. They're just staying.
Right.
So, which is why we can't get that number up.
And that makes sense. Okay. Which they will phase out. I mean, over the next 5 to 10 years, they will phase out and replaced by, hopefully, more female advisors, but it'll be also some young white males as well that'll take the place of the old white males.
Okay. It's fine.
It is okay. Absolutely. But you need more. We damn it, we need more women in the game.
Well, and
What
it's
is
interesting.
the
That's
industry
another
doing about that.
I was just going to say, oh my God, let's talk about that. Yeah. So there's a lot of issues that are keeping women out of it, or, so out of that, I always talk about that 23.9 because I'm always talking about the CFP stat. And, some firms, like the broker dealer firms are like 20% women, 80% men. And then, and then if you go higher up, like to the C-suite or to the rainmakers or to the owners, then it's lower than it just, the numbers keep
Mhm.
dropping. So it's like less than 10%. And I don't
Yeah.
have this stat, but I wish I did. And everybody always asks me, and I talk about it, of the women rainmakers in this profession that are in the top 1% that are making over $1 million a year, and the number is really small. I mean, really small. I mean, I feel like I know every single one of them, and
Right.
we're a really small group, like incredibly small group.
Like
And
you think it's 3%, 2%? I mean, it's less
don't
than
even know if it's
5.
one. It's definitely less than five. I don't even know if it's 1%. I mean, it's definitely between 1 and 3. And 3 is really pushing it. I don't even know if it's 3.
Mm.
And it's interesting because somebody had recently asked me, I'm doing another podcast, and they recently asked me, like, how do you know that you're in the top 1%? And I said, well, I Googled the IRS documents to see that, like, what is that? And so I know that I'm in the top 1% of all financial advisors, but I don't know of those 1%, how much of those are women?
Right.
That's the number I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fraction. It's a
It's crazy,
fraction,
right?
sadly.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
it is crazy.
back to one of the reasons that is hurting. So to be a rainmaker, so I always say that there's two different types of financial advisors, and they're both great. One is I call a finder, which is what I am, which is I bring in clients and I self-source clients and I rainmake clients. Then the other one is a minder. And that is just as important because I can't do my job without a minder. So I always
Mhm.
feel like if you are a minder, you take care of the clients. You are, you do everything for the clients. You may have meetings, you take care of all their needs, you update their plans, you're doing a lot for them all the time. You
Mhm.
are right there with them. But you're very important as well. Now, the only difference is in that role, it gets paid less because you're not bringing in clients. So,
Right.
the hardest part is bringing in clients, but we still need people to take care of clients all the time. So those two roles I feel like if women knew that they could be the second role, that they may like that better. Or if there's, and I talk to a lot of women who say, no, 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 I want the first role. And I said, go for
Mhm.
it then. Like, that's amazing because that's a harder job, but
Right.
go for it.
Yeah. Is there a third? Or no, there's just the
No,
two, find the
that's to
minder.
me, I mean, maybe there's a hybrid. So maybe you're both. Maybe you're in between. Maybe you take care of the clients and you're bringing in the clients. But I think that's hard. But I'm
Right.
sure
That
there's
is
some
hard.
people
Yeah.
doing both. I'm sure there's some people doing both.
Okay. I want to talk about women's health equals women's
Well,
wealth. And it's a very important part of our core values here and what it is that we try to instill and embody. And, if you don't have your health and wellness, that's mindset as well. It's
right,
not just the physical aspect of
right,
it, it's the internal aspect of it.
right.
And I think faith, if that suits you as well,
Mhm.
all the above is what defines a truly wealthy person, because you can have all the money in the world, and if your mind's not right and your
Right,
heart's not right or your physical body is not right, what do you have?
right. Exactly.
um, and it's interesting because I think women, being more predominantly the nurturer, the caretaker, they put others before themselves.
Absolutely.
And um, it's a challenge for a woman to be able to kind of step aside of that and prioritize their health and well-being first.
Well, it's that brings up a lot of issues because first you've got there's what's called the wealth gap. I don't know if you know what that is, but the wealth gap is because of caregiving and because of putting others first. So women who are out of the workforce, having children, raising children, and then taking care of parents, all
Mhm.
of that costs women over $1 million over their lifetime. So you got that issue. Then you've got women's health of the longevity issue. So women live longer on average than men, 7 to 10 years. Obviously, it depends on the person, but definitely have longevity. Like, so you're going to live a long time. So you have to save more money, not less money, and then you're out of the workforce. So you've got all these issues of the fact that women, so women have to prioritize health. Like, it's not even an option for, in my opinion. And also, there's another Fidelity study that says that women spend 250,000 or more in healthcare in retirement than men. So you got that little pot of money that you need too.
Wow.
To
Hmm.
and women's, the whole menopause, perimenopause thing is not right now hardly covered under insurance. But I think that's one of the things that's going to change when women are controlling the nation's wealth, that women are going to get their stuff covered.
Hmm. As they should. I mean, it's a huge biological transition where a lot of things happen. And I would argue, and I'm sure there's data that supports this, that when you address that, the benefits on the back end are there significant enough to look. It's no different than like doing a physical exam and being proactive with your health and wellness. It helps to save money in the long run. I would think it's the same thing.
Exactly. Well, I have a chapter actually in the book on that, and also on menopause, and talking about menopause with your clients as a very important life event for women. And it's interesting because I'll just give you the cliff notes, but a woman who does HRT, which is hormone replacement therapy, which got a terrible rap because of that study that has now been debunked and walked back
Mhm.
from the early 2000s, where got women off of HRT. But HRT helps women with not getting diabetes, with building bone, with bone density, and
Density, right?
also heart disease. So protects against the big major killers of women.
All which are incredibly important. The same thing with the male. It's different. If it's a different cocktail, but the same
Right,
needs of
right,
as we
exactly.
age, things change.
Right,
Address those needs.
right.
Stay proactive with it. Um, the other chapter I wanted to look at is chapter it's 18, and this is one thing where honestly, I think just some people, male advisors, are going to be challenged with just how do I attract and keep women clients, or even for female advisors, like what's the secret sauce? What's the recipe for being able to do this? And is there such a thing?
Well,
Or
so
is it
I think
fool's
there
gold?
is. I think there is, and I mean, I think I spell it out and give you the secret sauce and the keys to the kingdom in the book, because I want women to have a better experience with wealth management. There was that study, that Harvard Business Review study in my book, that said, financial services is the least sympathetic to women as an industry, and the one that has the most to change if they get it right. So here we go. Just do it right. And I mean, it's funny because women are not asking for the sun and the moon and the stars. They're asking for education, empowerment, and empathy. It's so easy.
Hmm.
It's not brain surgery. It's not, the sun and the moon and the stars. It's so simple. And to be listened to, and to be respected, and to have things slow down, and don't use jargon, and communicate their language. I mean, there's so many simple things. It's just, I feel like a lot of especially male advisors, again, don't know what they don't know. They just don't
Right.
know. It's a blind spot for them. That's what, in the book, I have that great quiz, which is how female friendly is your practice? And it's that 20-question quiz. And it goes through, things that you might not think about, like, do you meet with both spouses when you have meetings? And everyone's, a lot of times people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, offer the woman a separate meeting. What? I can do that? Of course you can, because she might not be talking if you and if you're a male advisor and you're and her husband is really into finances, and the two of you are having this whole conversation, and she's like flipping through a magazine, which I always like to tell that story because that happened, and totally disengaged. She's like, she's like she's here but not here. So bring her in, but you got to have a one-on-one with her. You have to have eye contact. You have to have communication. You have to ask her what's important to her. So
you see that the truth of that begins and ends with mutually being invested and caring about the voice of the female counterpart,
right.
In that instance. Don't just do it because someone tells you to do it and it's an exercise you're supposed
right.
to go
Well,
through.
she'll see right through that anyway. She will see right through that.
Right through it.
Right.
You don't give two hoots about me being here right now. Someone just told you that you should do this.
Right.
It is not about that.
No, that will actually backfire. That would backfire and go the other way. And then she'd be like, I'm firing this guy.
Because it begins with trust.
Right.
That's why.
Right.
And if you don't trust, you don't have trust, you have nothing.
Right.
Nothing to build on beyond that. And then it goes into, are you actually aligned with what I care about as the spouse or just the female in this relationship? And it's so much more than just investments.
Right.
Do you care about all the other things that are going on in my life? No, it's about,
right? Investments are like the last thing. Like I always say that, like, it's so not important to women. Like, yeah, investments are like there and they're a tool, but they're a tool to help you live your life, which is, and do what's most important to you, which, again, we don't like, it's so funny. I always say, like, I do talk about performance. I mean, eventually I'll talk about performance, but usually it's like the last thing, like as I'm walking out the door, I'm like, oh yeah, and your performance was XYZ for last year. Okay, thanks. Like, we're done. We're already finished our meeting. And then I'm like, oh yeah, and here's your performance.
Yeah, I guess I'm supposed to do this.
Well, I have it for them, so I want to show them, but they don't care.
They don't care. They care about all the other things.
But it's funny because sometimes they do care. One thing I think they do like is I'll say, let's say you made 15% or whatever. And then I'm like, but that was, let's say, I don't know, $1 million. Like, you made $1 million last year. Like, you made $1 million in your portfolio last year. And they're like, oh, that's good. That's all you needed to say.
That's it. That's a very refreshing place to be. But you have to be genuinely interested in all the other things. You have to genuinely care. That's what it comes down to.
Well,
it's not about the performance.
Another thing I say in my speeches that I do with advisors is I say, a woman doesn't care how much you know until she knows how much you care. And that is the absolute truth. And I didn't come up with that phrase. Somebody else did. I think it might have even been Eleanor Roosevelt, but I use it all the time.
And that sums it up perfectly. Let me ask you a few questions about you on a professional and personal level. For example, with travel, running a practice, doing all the things that Cary wants to do for her own well-being, how do you manage and prioritize your schedule and your day, your way of life?
So it's pretty simple. I do what I'm really good at and what I want to do and nothing else. So I always say, I stay in my lane. This is my lane, right? So I don't.
So did that come natural to you?
It took me a while to get to this point, but I prioritize health and fitness and wellness and fun and and travel only if it's where I want to go and if it's what I want to do. And, I'm trying to get better at saying no to, let's say if it's a speaking engagement that I don't want to do, I'm not going to do it. I'm last year, I think I did 25 speaking engagements across the country. This year, I think I'm on target for 20. So, which means I said no to a couple. I think I said no to 4 or 5 so far this year, but the year's not over yet. So we'll see. But I'm trying to just if it's a place I want to go and it's something I want to do and I like the organization and I like the people, then I'll say yes. So
Was there a chapter in your life where you found that you were the passenger in your life and you were being brought along and you're like, wait a minute, I got to figure something out here. Did that happen to you? And how did you get to the other side?
Probably when I went through my divorce, but that was a while that was a while ago. That was,
Okay, fair enough.
so that was like over 20 years ago. And that's when I was not in a great place. And I've
Right.
been in a great place ever since,
That's
so
amen to you. That's
so
fantastic.
yeah, thank you.
I imagine there are many things that you are asked to do or that are put in front of you that you need to either delegate or say no to.
Yes. So I have a very strong support staff that handles pretty much everything for me other than meeting with the clients and bringing in the clients. I am actually not taking clients at this moment in time because we're at max capacity and I've actually been here for a while and it's my decision to stay here at max capacity and not expand. I could hire more people where I'm constantly struggling with, should I hire more people? Or should I stay as is? Should I hire more people? Should I stay as is? It's been, and obviously because of my transitions from, 4 firms in 5 years, that has also, come into play with the fact that I can't take clients because we're at max capacity. So I've been here since 2019, unfortunately, which I know is crazy because, as an advisor, people are like, what do you mean you're turning away clients? I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't want my service level to go down or my clients to have a bad experience because I can't get back to them or there's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, I think it's a very commendable place to be because all too often when you do experience a level of success, the natural force in the environment, the world, is to continue to grow upon that, do more, do more, do more, as opposed to, and you end up losing a part of yourself in that in many cases.
Right.
And to be disciplined and intentional and committed to, there's all these other things that I want to do in my life and I can't, something has to give. Otherwise I become a passenger.
Exactly.
And so I just want to say I commend you for being the driving force of not only your practice, but being a voice for women and successful advisors as a whole out there to the community and doing your part and also taking care of yourself. I mean, amen to you.
Thank you. Yes, I really do. I mean, as a matter of fact, I after this, I'm going to yoga.
Good for you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for the time. It has been a true pleasure. I look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully in person. That would be wonderful. Maybe we'll find ourselves in Nashville at the Four Seasons there.
Yes, in August.
That would be great. Oh, in August. Yeah, that would be awesome. I would love to do that. Maybe it'll happen. If not, then it'll happen soon. Thank you, Cary. Enjoy yoga. Enjoy your life. Thank you for your time. And thank you
Scott.
for tuning in. Cheers.
The Optimized Advisor podcast is intended for financial professionals only. The content discussed is for informational and educational purposes and should not be construed as financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. Listeners should consult their own professional advisors before implementing any strategies discussed. Views expressed are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Optimized Insurance Planning or its affiliates.